Good afternoon and welcome to Step It Up. My name is Shalece, a compulsive eater and food addict in Phoenix, Arizona, and I'm really excited to share with you today that today is our recording of step 12. I can't believe we've gone through all the steps already. This is we'll be continuing to add material to the blog as we go along, as we think of things that would be useful and helpful to those who are looking to recover and those who are sponsoring as resources. But today we'll be focusing on step 12. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Lulu for her to share her experience on step 12.
Hi, I'm Lulu. I'm a compulsive overeater. And step 12. Well, I remember when my sponsor first was taking me through this chapter, the chapter Working with Others. She said, we read the first paragraph together. Practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from eating again as intensive work with other food addicts. It works when other activities fail. She said, do you realize what that says? It says that practical experience, meaning everybody that has been an addict and gets recovery and and has recovery and long-term sobriety, are people that work with others. Nothing will so much ensure immunity from eating again as intensive work with other alcoholics, other food addicts. It works when other activities fail. She reminded me of in Bill's story when it talks about that night that Bill was at that hotel and he came down the stairs and he was in the lobby and he could see the ambiance through the doorway of the bar. And he was just like, oh, and he just he wanted to go in there. He could hear the ice clanking and he could see the smoke. And he was just like, ooh la la, could I just go in there and have myself a party, right? So he was feeling that draw. Say the same way if it's Easter Sunday and everybody's with family and there's a big meal and a table full of people and you kind of look in and it's like you just kind of romancing it, the way that Bill was out there romancing the inside of that bar, which everything on the other side of that doorway was everything that destroyed him, although it's still alluring, right? So she said, isn't it interesting that at that moment when he was feeling that at that doorway, he didn't get on the stairs and go back upstairs and get on his knees and pray to God to keep him sober. He went to look for a phone booth. He looked to find another alcoholic, and he aggressively looked for another alcoholic, and he was making phone calls. And we know the story because we know Bill's story, but he, connected with somebody from a church that was in that was familiar with the Oxford group that used to meet there, and part of that Oxford group was Dr. Bob used to go there, and they were like, "Do you know a drunk?" And they're like, "Oh, do we know a drunk? Poor Dr. Bill, he couldn't get sober for anything, right? And if you could give me his number." And Dr. Bob was like, "I don't want to be talking to any drunk about my drinking. I don't want to be talking, And Bill just begged for like 20 minutes. Just give me 20 minutes. And so he agreed to the 20 minutes, and it turned into 4 hours, and it turned into this book. But praying to God, prayer is pretty powerful, but practical experience, the practical experience of me in this program is that nothing will so much ensure me to not eat again than intensive work with other food addicts, not just piddle around in it. It says intensive work with it because it works when other activities fail. So, this was like, she's like, Lulu, this means no more hogging your life. It's not yours anymore. You got to give it. And it seemed overwhelming because it's like, well, how am I going to do this and weigh and measure my food and go to meetings and, have a family and have a full-time job. And I mean, and now I'm going to fill up my schedule with sponsees. Well, it depends on what you want. It's about prioritizing. And I was always taught that the order of priority, it just seems crazy, but it's true. Program, family, job. If you're putting your job before your family or before program, you're out of whack. If you're putting your kids, your family in front of program, you're going to be you're going to come out shortchanged. It seems like it would be family, job, and then program, because family, well, yeah, my family, I gave birth to these kids and I'm responsible. Then there's the job. Well, the job is extremely important because it brings home the money, pays the bill, it's the house, the roof over our head. It all makes perfectly sense. But if my program is weak, the family and the job suck. It's just kind of like, it's like that, when you're flying on a plane and it says, you got that oxygen mask comes down, you put yours on first, then you put it on your kids. Because if I'm trying to get oxygen to my kids and I'm going to be passed out in a minute, then I'm not in a position to care for anybody. And that's how I came to understand that step 12 was a crucial part of my to maintain my recovery. And I am going to hand it over to Shalece.
Thank you, Lulu. Step 12 has always been kind of fascinating to me, and I found it very exciting even at the beginning. When I came in and just started to hear about the program, I wanted to start sharing what I was learning with everyone I came into contact with. It was just kind of like, oh my gosh, this thing, like nobody knows about it. Like I didn't know about it. How is anybody supposed to get to know about this? And so I just kind of had this like spark of a desire to share it, even before I had the whole thing, which I think is a good thing also, but also just know that I know there are a lot of people who are kind of terrified to share, even though it is powerful in their lives and the steps are powerful in their lives. Sometimes it's kind of nerve-wracking to take on the responsibility of a sponsee, especially at first when you have no idea what you're doing. You're just barely working it yourself. But I can tell you from experience that it's all just perfect and it's all just in perfect order. So trust the process, trust the order. For me, step 12 is, again, the only step I need to do perfectly is step 1. And admitting that I'm powerless over food, my life is unmanageable, I become abstinent, and then I begin to work the steps. Steps 2 through 12, I tweak them. They're tweaking all the time. I'm constantly in a learning, growing, adjusting mode, and that's kind of that spiritual growth, where that spiritual growth comes in. But step 12 is, again, one of those steps that we just learn as we go. There is no rule book on sponsorship. There is no, we're just doing the best we can. So keeping that in mind as we're sponsoring and also as we're being sponsored, that just knowing my first sponsor, she gave me what she had, and it was the most perfect thing for me in that time that I worked with, that she worked with me, that she was willing to share her time with me. And then moving in and working with my second sponsors, this is the same thing. And I'm giving my sponsees the best that I know how. So for me, step 12, I love the wording. Again, I'm going to point back to the wording of the steps. Step 12 is, we tried to carry the message. I love the little word tried is in there. It doesn't say we carried the message perfectly and we delivered it perfectly and everyone recovered that we worked with. That's just not realistic. That's not true. We tried. And that tried just means that I'm giving it my best effort, with the willingness to want to share God's word with people and to connect people with the power that they need to be able to recover. So for me, Um, I've made lots of mistakes as I've gone along that I've learned from as a sponsor. I've had lots of questions thrown at me that I didn't know the answer to, but I am able to at any time reach up to my sponsor and other people around me just to get I don't need to have all the answers to be able to sponsor. I don't need to have all of the knowledge to I don't need to know everything. In fact, it's really helpful to not know everything. And it feels really good to just trust that whoever I'm working with is going to get exactly what they need, because guess what? God's in charge. I'm not. Again, I gave up that role as all knowing and all powerful when I took step 3. Like, I am not all knowing, I am not all powerful. I'm just a human being doing the best I can, and that's enough. And I will say that sponsorship is one of the most powerful and joyful things that I've ever experienced. And it's pretty amazing. It was amazing and transforming for me to go through the steps, and it is continuing to transform me. But when I bring somebody else through and they have those light bulb moments, those ahas, and those when the pieces of the puzzle click together and they're just like, oh my gosh, I have to tell you what this situation happened and how I acted, and instead of the way that I used to act. And you just get so excited for people to see those changes in their lives. And really, there's just not a greater joy than seeing someone change and seeing someone become sober and stay sober. There's my timer. But with that, I will go ahead and pass it back to Lulu.
Hi there. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'm looking at the second paragraph on working with others. Life will take on a new meaning. To watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up about you, to have a host of friends. This is an experience you must not miss. We know you will not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. What a paragraph. Those are the step 12 promises. I always say there's promises all over this book. Those are your step 12 promises. It becomes the bright spot of your life. This is not something, even though this is something I have to do. Well, if I want to stay abstinent and stay sober and stay in the space of freedom. But this is something I get to do. I don't have to do it. I get to do it. The same thing way I say about the food. It's kind of like, you don't say like, I can't eat that. You say, I don't eat that. It's just a whole different feel. When I say I have to sponsor now, no, I get to. I actually have something that that was so graciously given to me. I didn't realize at the time what a gift I was to her. I couldn't see that. It felt like I was just taking, and I was just there. Every time I was allowed to be in her presence, I would just be listening and listening. And, it's funny, like I would look at her and think of her as like a guru, and she'd be like, don't call me a guru. I'm not a guru, But I looked up the definition of guru, and it says someone who dispels darkness. Someone who dispels darkness. How cool is that? It's just even if you're dispelling darkness about electricity, well, then you're my electrical guru, the electrician that comes to my house. You're my guru. You just taught me everything. It's about dispelling. Who dispels darkness? What am I in the dark about? There's all kinds of things. So there's gurus in all kinds of areas, and I have to realize the gift that I've been given, and then I find my ways in which I share it. And everybody's different. So when I have like sponsees that are sponsoring, and they ask me, it's like, you don't need to do it like me. This is what I would do, but you might want to consider your own ways, and because the way that I take somebody through is a lot like the way I was brought through. But they were also, after being on the other side of it, I thought a few times like, oh, if she had explained it like this, I would have understood a little better, because I was in my writing, I was in mass confusion. I didn't know what the hell I was putting on that paper, right? And I find that this little system that I came up with just with some ideas, seems that the quality of writing that I get is just like, oh, it's from people that understand what's being asked. The first few people I took through the steps, God bless them, is all I got to say. And there were people that ate and I thought it was my fault. There were people that started writing and I thought it was my fault. Oh, what they had to write about was too painful. Why did I just messed them up because I made them think about this awful stuff from the past and I shouldn't have done that. No, no, they signed up for it. You sign up for it. What's really wonderful about a sponsor-sponsee relationship is, you really get to know each other really, really, really well. And um, you sign up for it. Like, there's none of this, like with my sponsees, there's none of this like, oh, well, I got to mind my own business. I got to learn to keep my mouth shut. No, if you're my sponsee, you're probably going to hear everything that I think. And I feel like you kind of sign up for that. And it's just like, you just got that one person in your life that is just no bullshit. No sugarcoating. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. No sugarcoating anything. um, no, no, saying, oh, let's see how I can be gentle. No, you know something? You might need to hear this because this is what I'm seeing from what you wrote. So really, it all really comes from you. It doesn't really come from me. And so once I really fully understand that, I'm just kind of pointing out what you pointed out, but you don't even really realize that you pointed it out. And oh, I tell you, thank God for my sponsor and the step 10s that I do today that that keep that relationship. Sometimes like a month will go by and I won't even have, like, there'll be no step 10s that I really need. A lot of them I can do in my head now. But I'll just send her a text and I'll be like, can I grab a session with you on, Saturdays at noon? I always know she has Saturday at noon, and it seems like open. And so I'll be like, I'll talk to you Saturday at noon. And yeah, we just like catch up. We just do catch up, and she's like looks forward to my calls, and I really am so grateful for. Oh, I tell her, like, how do you like listen the way you listen? She's like the best listener I know. I'm not a good listener. And I was just like, I'll go on and on and on explaining this whole story that I really could have said in 5 minutes, but now I've said it in 20 because I need to say it every which way and I need to say it 3 times. Then I need to really prove my point. And then she's like, she's not interrupting, she's not asking me questions. I'm a real question. I don't interrupt people because it's like you need to shut up. My interrupting is more about like, I need more information. I need to ask you questions because I really want to, I almost want to feel like I'm there, and that's how I do things. But I'm like, after I get through it, I'm like, okay, I'll shut up now. And I can't believe you haven't said a peep. Like, you haven't even gone like, oh boy, like nothing. And God bless her and her patience. And so I just know that, like, my um, my step 12 is with sponsees that work for me. When you're working your step 1 with me, then you're working your step 1, I'm working my step 12. Actually, right this very minute, Shalece and I are working our step 12 because we're carrying the message. We're carrying the message, and we're carrying the message to other food addicts. As a result, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we try to carry the message. So in these recordings, we are carrying the message. So it's step 12 looks like a lot of different things, you know. Um, um, in my step 12, when I work with others, you know, I like a really good commitment. I like a good, strong enthusiasm. And, you know, if I'm not feeling it, this, you know what it is? There's so many people that want help. So I remember the gift that I felt I was getting every single session I had with my sponsor. It was like a gift. It was not like, oh, I got to go. And this was like, this is back when I worked full time. I would get up in the morning, I would get ready for work, pack my food, walk to the bus stop, take the bus into Boston, get off the bus, hop on the subway, 5 stops, get off the train, walk a mile. And then I'd be at the office, work 9 to 5, then walk the mile back to the train, 5 stops, back to the bus to Woburn, then walk back. And then I would come home and I would make my dinner because I had to drive to her house on Tuesday nights and I had to be there by 7. And I've already just been commuting and working all day. Never once did I think for 1 second, like, oh, just don't want to go tonight. It just never happened because I was on fire. I was on fire. And she was on fire because I was on fire. You know, it's like contagious, you know, it's like infectious. And I would love going up every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. There I was on her couch. Yeah, nobody was doing Zoom and stuff. You didn't work with people that didn't live down the street from you, you know. And but I would have to drive like 20 minutes to her house, but not once did I dread it because it was magical. Even with going through all the yuck, the writing and all that yuck and all that God stuff I wasn't into, and oh, I just didn't want to hear about this God stuff. And then, you know, and then I did. And then I just did, you know. They say that spirituality and that connection with God is not so much taught as it is caught. And I feel like I caught it. I feel like I caught it from her. And what a gift, what a gift. And today, I'm retired. And I remember that when my sponsor, she was retired, she had just retired. And I was one of her sponsees that would come on Tuesday nights. And I remember looking on her fridge. She had this calendar on her fridge and it was like loaded up with names. And I was like, are these all the people like you're sponsoring? And she's just like, yeah. And I was like, do you mind if I look? And I counted 18 a week. 18 a week. I was like, that's like a full-time job. She was working with two hours. I would be there from 7 to 9. So she was working with 18 people a week for 2 hours each. It was a full-time job. That was her, because it was such the bright spot of her life. And she just loved it. She loved it. And I love it too. I love it too. But I get a lot of other things I love too. Thank goodness that I have so many interests and I have capabilities, because I take good care of my body. I'm capable of doing things, you know, that are strenuous and energetic and good for me. And I want a nice balance. And so for today, 6 work for me. 6 works for me. I like 6. And I have probably 20, but they're all past the work and it's on an as needed basis. But I like 6 active, and that's what works for me with my availability and my balance. And it is most definitely the bright spot of my life. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Lulu. Sponsorship is definitely the bright spot of my life as well. And also I'm an in a little bit different situation. I've got kids at home still, husband that's working, and it's taken me quite a while to kind of create balance with sponsorship. And it has taken me some time, and I know that it'll shift as life changes, as life shifts, and as circumstances change. Right now, for me, 2 sponsees is just perfect. And I find that with my kids and everything else that's going on, I've tried to take on more than that, and have realized that for me is like my sweet spot right now. And just knowing that may shift, that may change, but that's my sweet spot. And I also love the fact that even though I only have those 2 spaces that I keep available for sponsorship, but I love to talk to newcomers. I love to answer newcomer questions, and I can do that through WhatsApp. And so a lot of times I'll invite people to just, hey, if you have any questions, if you're new, just send me a message on WhatsApp. And people will be like, thank you for your time. Thank you. And I'm like, no, thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. Because again, you don't understand this until you've been through the work, until you're sponsoring the newcomer's time, my sponsee's time, that I am thanking them for that, because again, they're sharing their time with me, and their willingness to do this work and do what it takes to recover is a gift to me. It's something that that helps to solidify my recovery when I'm sharing. And basically, one of the best ways to learn something is to teach it to somebody else. And so realizing that I've done the work, my job isn't done. Like when I'm teaching it to others, it solidifies the principles that I have, and it grows my understanding. And it's interesting too, to help people. A lot of the people that I sponsor right now are older than I am. And so some of them have adult children. And so I'm working through step 10s with them on how they're interacting with their adult children. And I'm like, yep, gonna stick that in my back pocket, because I'm gonna have adult children someday, and so I'll be like, well, I already know the answer to that one, because I worked it through it with one of my sponsees, or, and so just knowing that truth builds on truth. And that's really what we're looking for. We're looking as sponsors to connect our sponsees with the power that they need, because they're powerless. I'm powerless over food. My life has become unmanageable. I have been connected by the grace of God and my sponsor to the power that's greater than myself, that a God of my understanding, that helps me to continue to recover. So of course I'm going to want to share that. Oh my gosh, like it's the greatest gift that I've been given, and how could I not want to share it? So I know for me, I've had some rough sponsee breakups, and I've had to do step 10s on those, and have had to have help with recovering from those things, But the cool thing is that it's okay. Like it's all learning, and it's all growing. As far as, I actually recently did a step 10 on sponsorship itself, because I kind of was misunderstanding some things about it, and was like, oh my gosh, my sponsees, maybe they think I'm God, and I know that I need to know all the answers. And so I had to work through that feeling and fear, resentment, and all of that. And I'm feeling very, very different about it than I did a couple of months ago. And so again, we just get moved into a bigger space, a greater version of ourselves. And it's all of it. It's just such a beautiful thing. I was talking with one of my sponsees about sponsorship, and she used to be in the Navy, and she shared something with me that was extremely powerful and valuable, and helped me to also see, as I was working through this resentment about sponsorship with my sponsor. She and I were talking about it, and she had something valuable to share, and so I'll share it with you. She used to work, she was in the Navy, and she would go on these tours, I guess, that would end up being a lot longer than they thought they would be. So they had to send supply ships, and there was rank in obviously there's rank in the Navy, there higher ups and then lower downs on this rank. And she said every time that supply ship would come up and dock up to the ship, rank did not matter. It was just totally, it was totally taken away, and it was all hands on deck. And so everybody would just come, and the person closest to the supply ship would grab something and they'd pass it to the person behind them. And they'd, it didn't matter what rank you were all out there helping, moving and passing these supply things on to the ship so everyone could have what they needed. And that is what sponsorship looks like. That is what sponsorship is. There is no rank in OA. There is no more powerful, smarter, greater than you are. It's all hands on deck. We all have the same goal, which is to recover, to quit compulsively overeating, and to stay connected with God. And so really with sponsorship, I may have a little more time. I may have a little more experience. I have a different story that will be valuable to you, but I'm not smarter than you. I'm not better than you or greater than you. There is no rank here. It's all hands on deck. So with helping with sponsees and helping each other, we all just have we have a common goal. And so just keeping that in mind has really, really helped me to, keep myself right sized and keep others right sized as well. That's pretty much what I've got to share on step 12. Do you have anything you want to add, Lulu, or do we want to open it up for questions?
Yeah, I'll add a little something. I heard it said once, like, we come in like a big shot, when we get abstinent, we kind of think we're really great, and we are great, but so you're kind of feeling like a big shot. When you're ready to sponsor, you're kind of feeling like a big shot. And then speaking of rank, the highest rank that you can go in program is from big shot to servant. Okay, so when you're a servant, you've arrived. And I am not on this platform right now making these recordings because I think I'm a big shot. I am thrilled when I hear people say that they find it really helpful, and that they are sending their sponsees to that website, and that they are learning how to sponsor from that website. It's like, it's really the only thing. It's like, I'm not looking for an award. I'm not looking for a badge. I'm looking for nothing. This is my step 12. Every time I do, every time I work with a sponsee, work on this this platform, which Shalece invited me to do, she has good ideas. The whole meeting was her idea. The meeting that the Zoom link that we all have, that we go to meetings 5 times a week, it was all her. And that was back when she was a big shot, but now she's a servant. And it's also important in step 12. I think we should do a separate recording on, and we practice these principles in all our affairs, which is the tail end of the step 12, which is a whole different thing. It's like having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry the message to other alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. So what are the principles that we're practicing in what affairs? So it's kind of like it takes us out of program into our lives. There's a paragraph in this working with others chapter that I find a really powerful paragraph. It's on page 100, and it's the very first full paragraph. It says, both you and the new man must walk day by day in the path of spiritual progress. If you persist, remarkable things will happen. When we look back, we realize that the things which came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands were better than anything we could have planned. Follow the dictates of a higher power, and you will presently live in a new and wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstances. And that is a promise. It's like circumstances come. Life is just really a series of circumstances. situations. And we keep wanting there to be none, but like if there weren't any, like what would we do with ourselves, right? And then we might not be too quick to want this one gone, because once that's gone, guess what? Another one's going to roll in. And this is where we either handle these situations in a higher powered way, or we don't. And either way is okay, because there's a solution. Because if you've handled it in a higher powered way, you're just learning to handle things in that way. If you fall short, that's what we have step 10s for, you know, and we get to the bottom of it. And then there'll be the next situation. But it's like, can I presently live in this new and wonderful world no matter what my present circumstances? I've s- I've seen it to be. I haven't had every circumstance in the world to answer that emphatically, but uh, so far, there's yeah, it's like no matter what, it's just like what's being dealt to me, you know, and why can't I handle it? So that's what I have. But we do have some questions. You want to go over those, Shalece?
That'd be great. Let's see here. Okay, so one of them says, my sponsor suggested it was time to start to sponsor, and I said no. My perfectionism needed me to have a PhD in OA before I could begin, but this is really helping. She suggested that there is a 12-day starter sponsored program to get people started in the program. What do you guys think of that? Think of that as a start to sponsoring. I think that there are all sorts of ways to get started sponsoring, and I think that it's intimidating, I think, for all of us, because again, I felt like I was a baby in the program. I was like, okay, yeah, I've worked the steps, but I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. There are all sorts of tools out there. And what are your thoughts, Lulu?
Well, I can remember uh, the first time somebody asked me to be a speaker at a meeting, like I was going to tell my story for 20 minutes. I was like, no. And just reminds me of this. I just said no. And but I was excited that I was asked, because I was just like, oh, that was cool to be asked. This was when I was in my big shot phase. Oh, somebody asked me. So I remember I was really excited, and I told my sponsor, I was like, guess what? Somebody asked me to be the speaker at a meeting. And she's like, well, look at you. How cool is that? So when is it? And I was like, well, I said no. And she was just like, what? What did you say no? What did you say no for? I was like, what am I going to say? Like, what am I going to say? And she's just like, oh, Lulu, she's got her head in her hands and she's just shaking her head. She's like, you don't say no. You don't say no. You say yes. All the time you say yes. And she said, this isn't Carnegie Hall. You're not that fabulous. You're just really not that great. You're just like everybody else. Come back down. Just go in there and tell your story. You only have one story. It's yours. You can't even embellish it to make yourself sound however you think you need to be in order to be for it to be perfect. You just don't say no. So I remember going forward, every time I was asked to do anything, I thought, somebody just asked me if I wanted to be a speaker for a weekend in Dallas, Texas at a convention. Well, I can say no to that. I need a 5-hour flight and a hotel, and I'm just like, don't say no, don't say no. So there I was. Somebody asked me to facilitate a retreat up in Maine. I was like, yep, here I come, and it was on short notice because somebody canceled. So I had no time to prepare, which is great because there's nothing really to prepare, because my story and my truth is extremely available to me because it's mine. I'm not trying to teach somebody else's story. I'm not trying to show you the story of this. It's mine, So that's what you have to bring to sponsorship. It's going to be perfect for the time that you begin doing that. it's going to be perfect because it's going to be in relation to your experience, capabilities. And the thing is if you have a sponsor that's always available to you to bounce things off of, that's the way I got started. I would be sitting with a sponsee and they'd be like, so when I write this, like, what do I do in this? And I'd be like, oh, I would be like, I don't know. Can I get back to you on that? But I didn't want to sound stupid. But I was just like, I don't want to mess this up because this is somebody else's recovery. So I knew, just ask. And a lot of the sponsoring I do with sponsees that have moved past the active step work, the 1 through 9, it's all helping them sponsor. It's what most of it is. And that's for their recovery and the person's recovery. So it's sometimes I get invited into a 3-way Zoom session with a sponsee and their sponsee because it's something really sticky. And, sometimes sponsees have experiences that we've never had, and it's just like, I can remember calling my sponsor, like, what do you do when somebody's, been like abused? Like, I was never abused. Like, what do you do? What do you say? Like, well, how'd you get that ball rolling? Like it says in the big book, and you're just trying, I was like, you got to help me, and then it comes up enough that you're like, oh, that's what it's going to look like. And then the next person that comes up for, I have had enough experience with that without directly experiencing it myself to show them how to think about it differently, to bring them peace and joy, because that's all we want. We just want to be content. We don't want to be restless, irritable, discontent. We want to be the opposite of those. And but that's what I got for that.
And I'll add to that too. Just I love that you said basically I've got my story to share, and that's so valuable in relating with other people. They can relate to you, and you're basically sharing your experience and what you did to get where you are. And then I have my experience and I have invitations. That's basically all I have for sponsees. I have my experience that I share, and then I have invitations. This is what I'm doing. Do you want to try it? Are you willing to try it? And so basically I'm sharing experience and I'm inviting, and you can tell pretty closely off the bat if someone's going to take the invitations or not. And if someone chooses not to take the invitations, it's not that they're bad. It's just may not be a good fit, or they may not be ready for it. And so I don't drag people down the path of recovery. I just don't. You've got to take your steps on your own. You can take the invitations or not take the invitations, but if you're not taking the invitations and the suggestions, you probably don't need me. What do you need me for? Right. So it's kind of like you just kind of feel it out that way.
And if you have a lot of abstinence under your belt, and you've been abstinent and you've done your step work, and I usually start my sponsees sponsoring like somewhere in step 5 when they start sharing their writing, and we're working on 6, 7, 8, and 9 as we go through 5. That's a really good time to start with somebody on step 1. Just help somebody to get out of the food. You know how to do that. I mean, this people can't do that for a day. Anymore. Yeah, some people can't do 1 day. So like if you have 30 days, it's like somebody will be like, how did you not eat for 30 days? It's not like you need years and years to be, you're already a miracle. If you have 1 day, you're a miracle. I would say just don't be afraid. Don't have like performance anxiety, because it's not a performance. It's not a performance. As long as you consider it a performance that you're going to be like evaluated on, you're missing it. You're missing it. So try to, maybe do some step 10s on that. I also see a question, are we done with the steps once we reach step 12? Well, we're never done with the steps, because 10, 11, and 12 are just ongoing. I'm always going to be questioning myself and seeing when I'm resentful and when how I don't want that going on in my world today. So I know the tool I have to get out of that. And then in step 11 is where I really kind of look at myself and really, it's where I enlarge my spiritual life, because that's really important. I don't stay the same. If I'm in the same spiritual space next year at this time that I am today, I'm kind of slacking. I need to be, everything just needs to keep getting bigger and brighter and calmer. And it's my experience so far is that it has. And also working with others, what we're talking about today. So you're really kind of never done with the steps, but working with a sponsor, yeah, as soon as somebody's done with their step 5, we've made amends, worked on their sex ideal, and we take a session and study step 10. We take a session and study step 11. We take a session and study step 12, and then you're off my schedule, like for a weekly appointment. But I'm available all the time. Like if you need 2 sessions a week, I'll do it. But I take it out of my schedule, like a scheduled thing. But I'm the, for sponsoring, helping people sponsor, that's another good thing about this that you have, Liz, that a lot of people that I didn't have and Shalece didn't have and people didn't have, is all the stuff on Step It Up, the Step It Up recordings. That's really for, other than our presentations, our presentation on each step about our experience, and all the other ones are meant to just, this is how we do it. Like, this is what I do with sponsees. Yeah, this is what I do with sponsees. This is how I do step 3 with sponsees. The first step 3 presentation recording is about my experience when I took my step 3 with my sponsor. But then there's other recordings there when I talk about what I do when I take step 3 with people. So when you're ready to take step 3 with somebody, you might want to listen to that. You can send them to listen to those things. You can do, and then reach out to your sponsor too. So, is that helpful? Yes. The big book says if he does not want to stop drinking, don't waste time trying to persuade him. Yep.
I'm not dragging anybody. I'm not.
No, yep. That's it. That's it. Because, you just, I had a little slip. It's like, no, there's no little slip. Nothing just slips into your mouth by mistake. You've made a decision that this is not on my food plan, and you opened your mouth and you put it in there. And I'm not saying that we can talk about this in other recordings about like,
what do you do when,
what do you do when you have a sponsee that eats? I have a sponsee that just contacted me today saying that their sponsee had like a 2-day binge. What do I do? They were writing step 4. So I just said what I would do, but that person needs to make their own decisions on how they want to handle things like that. What feels right to them. Some people say 1 and done. Some people say only before step 1. If we haven't taken step 1, then, we can work it. But like, what do you do? It's like not something you just sweep under the rug. It's not like, let's pretend it didn't happen. Because if you do that, then it's going to happen again, And anyway.
Yeah, I think we should do I think that would be a valuable whole recording on kind of how to handle those kinds of situations with sponsees.
Put it on the list. Don't we have a list?
Yeah.
Do we still
we
have
do.
a list? Oh, okay.
We do.
Because we every so often, like when we were hiking last week, we would be like, oh, this will be a good one. Yeah, we got to put that. But did we?
We put it on the list. I don't know.
We were in the middle of the sky on the side of a friggin' cliff, and I was dying, and I'm like, yeah, put that on the list. Jesus, they took me way up in the sky. These kids, these young kids taking this old lady, they dragged me by my hair.
Yeah.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, so I think that last question there was just how do you know if somebody's eating and how do you let them go? Any ideas? And again, I think that's when that's happened for me, I reach out to my sponsor and she shares her experience, and then she's like, but you got to do what feels right to you. And I've had situations where there was a gap in understanding where so there were some things missing that I just needed to listen to what happened instead of just making a snap decision on, well, you ate, so I needed to let you go. I needed to sit still and be quiet for a minute and actually listen to what happened. And then with what I was like, oh, it's just there was some gaps in understanding. There was very, at the beginning, but then there have been times where it's like way later on, and it's like, that's not something I'm willing to work with. Because again, if I'm continuing to help somebody that's continuing to compulsively overeat, I'm not helping them. So I got to keep that in mind as well.
I just want to share one quote that I have written in this chapter. Isn't this the most beautiful sentence? The place God chose for me is the intersection where my greatest joy and the world's greatest need meets. Isn't that gorgeous? My greatest joy and a great need of the world meet. And that's this program. For me, that's this program. Now I know why I hurt myself with food for so long. I was meant to be brought to this place, and there wasn't anything that was going to get my attention the way that did. Because I have another quote that I have written down that's I love. Despair and pain can energize us with an intensity to change that we don't normally possess. I did not normally possess the intensity to change that. I wanted to change it. I felt desperate. I was fat. I was miserable. And I was just a restless, irritable discontent. But there's a certain level of despair and pain that energized me with such an intensity to change that I normally didn't possess. And then I was just carried kind of through this whole recovery program where a real need in the world was matched up with something that happens to be a great joy for me.
Thank you so much, Lulu. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We look forward to having you join us for future recordings. Like I say, this is step 12, but our work is never done, even once we've gotten to step 12. So there will
We're not
always
going
be.
away. We're not going
Away.
anywhere. We have an endless supply of chin wagon.
We do.